Williamsville Sports Weekly is brought to you by your local country financial representative, Ed Legner. Please contact Ed for all your insurance and financial planning needs. His office is located at 318 Crossing Drive in Sherman, and he can be reached at 217-496-2341. But for now, enjoy the show. Welcome to Williamsville Sports Weekly, an in-depth look at both BB and Bullet athletics, hosted by our athletic director Adam Euchre and former Lady Bullets basketball coach John Hampton.
Welcome to episode 85 of Williamsville Sports Weekly, presented by Ed Legner, Country Insurance Financial Representative out of Sherman, Illinois. You can visit Ed for all your insurance and financial needs. John, it's a little bit of a, surreal day this morning, as you sitting here as a Cardinals fan, myself as a White Sox fan, and we're saying the Cubs are World Series champions. It's kind of odd to say that after all the utter disappointment that fan base has gone through, and I don't believe in curses or anything. I would just say it was a mismanaged franchise for a very, very long time. But it's kind of a weird feeling this morning.
It is. I mean, especially, I don't think the younger kids really get it. They know the stats and everything for the years, and we probably don't even get as much as like our grandparents or parents do. But yeah, growing up, you just always know the Cubs, and every year wait till next year and all that kind of stuff. And I thought I was pulled for him, but the inner Cardinal fan of me I'm pumping my fist when Davis hit that home run in the eighth. I'm sitting there on the couch, and all of a sudden I found myself pumping my fist for the Indians, and I know about 5 players on that team. Yeah. But yeah, it's funny how just little things like that, just the competitive person in you, and talk to your friends who are Cub fans and going back and forth. And like you said, with the White Sox, we don't even understand the White Sox-Cub rivalry down here because, obviously we're not around Chicago. And that's probably a lot tougher rivalry than even the Cardinal-Cub rivalry is.
Oh, yeah. I mean, there was no way I could cheer for them. None. And I had stuff ready to go for some of my brother-in-laws, my sister-in-law. I had it all ready to go last night when he hit that home run in the eighth. And my mother buddy and I were texting back and forth last night about, how in 2005 our pitchers wouldn't have been taken out.
Right.
Like Madden did last night. But, yeah, it's like myself as an Eagles fan, there's no way I could ever cheer for the Cowboys.
Right.
As a Notre Dame fan, I could never cheer for Michigan. And it's just, my wife even said last night, aren't you just a little happy? No.
Yeah.
No, I just can't do it. And I think as a true White Sox fan, you can't. But, for people like my grandparents who have since passed, if they were still here, I would have been happy for them.
Yeah. That's who we have some people down the street, older people, retired, and they're the ones that always hang the W flag. I mean, if it's June and they have a bad team, there's still a W flag off. They get a win, and it's kind of cool. Those guys were really satisfied. And, there's always a good and a bad to everything, but it's a great story, and I do want to talk to those older people and just kind of see how they felt, and because baseball is not America's pastime anymore, really. I know they like to say it is, but football's kind of taken over. But that's still the generation that every day they were listening to the Cub game or listening to a Cardinal game, and it's still their pastime. So yeah, it means a lot to the older people.
Well, and the cool thing to look at with, and we talked about this in Captain's Council this morning, is when you're faced with adversity, how are you going to respond? And obviously, they were faced with an adverse situation in the eighth when that 2-out, 2-run homer gets hit. And then, the rain delay ultimately helped them with calming them down. Yep. I think it's a great lesson for kids is just because something bad happens doesn't mean you can't fix it. There's a way to fix it and to face that adversity and face it head on. So we talked about that this morning. So there's some great life lessons in there.
Absolutely.
But talking about football, that's going to be our main focus this week. Obviously, we're in the second round of the playoffs, headed to Carlinville, a team out of the South Central, very similar in terms of schemes that we run, similar running backs. But the main focus this week, we have the current career rushing leader for the Bullets, Brian Lyttaker, on in the next segment. And then
good. I didn't know you interviewed.
Yeah, and then followed by Jace Franklin then. And, you and I were talking beforehand whether or not you had ever coached anyone that broke a record for a program. You said really the only thing that came close was a rebounding record that one of your players broke, and that kind of speaks to the volume of how long this record has stood for the last 18 years, with Brian currently having 3,738 yards, Jace sitting at 3,723, and we'll get more into the stats with each of them in the next two segments. But to have this record stand for such a long time, such a great program, and the thing that amazes me with Brian having that amount of yards is the style of offense that was run back then. The ground and pound, 3 yards in a cloud of dust. I think it's easier now with how defenses are and how schemes are to probably get the yards. And it's nothing against what Jace has been able to do, but it was just a different time frame, and it's just cool to see this, obviously. And I think Jace's record will stand for a long time too. And he's real close. He has a possibility of getting 2,000. He's at 1,622 right now.
Yeah, he's close to the all-time single season record too.
Yeah, Brian's was 1927 back in 1998, his senior year. So as long as we keep playing and doing what we're supposed to, Jace has a chance to set that. He set the career scoring record this year. He had 30 touchdowns coming in. He's got 57 currently. So just a lot of cool things, but it's pretty awesome to be able to see a record like that broken.
Yeah, and again, it's one of those things where I was fortunate enough to be the coach over at Riverton when we had Mike Tisdale, and his senior year we'd throw him an alley-oop, he'd slam it, and all of a sudden you notice that there wasn't much cheering. It was kind of like, oh, yawn, yawn from our fans. And I just remember sitting there thinking, boy, this isn't going to happen much here in 3 months. And it's kind of the same idea here with Jace. You got to appreciate when you get these really good individual players like this. You really got to appreciate what you're watching. And Keegan McGann's going to be a good tailback for us next year. You see him play, at the end of the games and stuff. But when you get these special players that can set these types of records, it's good to kind of sit back and just enjoy the moment. What you got, and and appreciate some of the talent that's come through here. Like a Brian Lyttaker at the time. I'm sure no one thought, boy, that record's going to stand for 18 years. Well, it has, and that's through some great football teams. Over those past 18 years, and it's quite an accomplishment, and it's something his teammates can also feel a part of, the offensive line, and, even the receivers who they have to honor, and the quarterback, they have to honor him on his running. And our coaching staff does a good job with their offensive game plans. So, yeah, it's a big honor, and, I think people appreciate it, but you probably appreciate them more after they leave.
Yeah, and like we said, hopefully this Saturday isn't the last game that we'll be seeing Jace playing. Obviously, once you get to the playoffs, that can be a possibility, and we'll talk a little bit more about that particular matchup in the closing segment. But we really want to get you to these next two interviews. There's some good ones. But before we do that, remember you can subscribe to the podcast, Williamsville Sports Weekly, on iTunes, so it comes right to your podcast feed every week. If not, you can go to the main page of the district, wcsd15.org, go to the athletics tab. This episode, as well as all the past episodes, are there, as well as Facebook, Facebook.com/WHS Bullets. It's up there as well. And then always follow us on Twitter, WCSD15 Sports, for all your news and score updates on both BB and Bullet athletics throughout the 2016-2017 school year. When we return, we'll be joined by current all-time leading rusher for the Bullets, Brian Lyttaker.
Next time you're in the market for insurance or financial planning, stop by and see Country Financial Representative Ed Legner at 318 Crossing Drive in Sherman, or give him a call at 217-496-2341. And now, back to the show.
Welcome back to Williamsville Sports Weekly, presented by Ed Legner, Country Insurance Financial Representative out of Sherman, Illinois. You can visit Ed for all your insurance and financial needs. On the phone with us right now is the current all-time leading rusher for Williamsville High School, Brian Lyttaker. Brian, thanks for taking time out of your day to talk to us about the record you set back in 1999, almost 20 years ago now. And obviously a pretty good possibility of that record getting broken. So thanks for coming on. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
Now, I guess the first question I have for you, because I'm only a year younger than you, and it always amazes me that I don't, feel as old as I am, turning 35 this year. But is it, when I say this record has been around, for 18 years now, almost 20 years, is it hard, for you to look back and think that, man, this has been almost 20 years ago that all this took place for you?
Yeah, it has. It doesn't feel like I've been out that long. My body don't really feel like I've been out that long. So yeah, it's a good. I'm glad it stood for that long, and records are always meant to be broke, and I'm glad to see somebody like Jace, chasing for it.
And the one thing, because both you and I played at the same time in terms of high school football. My school was a little bit bigger, but you ran a Power I. Where I grew up, we ran no huddle wishbone, and it was a lot more of a run oriented game. And I'm sure when teams were playing you, they would stack 8 to 9 in the box trying to stop you, and obviously the game has changed a little bit, and I think that's what is kind of surprising to see that. What you were able to do with those defenses is kind of different than it is nowadays.
Oh yeah. They like nowadays, they spread the ball. They the spacing's more important. Where when we were there, like you said, they stacked up. Stacked the box. At the end of my season, teams, they keyed in on me because they knew, what we had and what we were going to do, and it made it harder, but I had to do what I had to do to win the game and, advance on.
And looking at kind of, comparing you and Jace, I'm going to compare between your guys' junior and senior years. You guys both had, a huge jump in numbers, and you also had teams that were coming off of, a season that maybe people weren't expecting. You in 97, you guys were 3-6. You had 1,299 yards rushing your junior year. Jace was, coming off a 5-5 season, after a state title run. His sophomore year in 2014, I think he had 1,242 his junior year. Talking about you specifically, what was kind of maybe some of your motivation and, your off-season training to have such a huge jump in yards in between your junior and senior year?
Just work hard. I knew my coach told me for my end of my junior year, let's shoot for 2,000 yards, and I worked hard. I was a track runner, so that helped out a lot. You got to put in the time. I tell my kids, I coach now, and I tell them, every time we got practice, it's time to go to work. We got to work. That's my biggest word is let's get to work. No, it's you got to work hard. You got to put in time. You got to put in the dedication. You got to be dedicated. If not, football's like a job. That's why I said let's go to work. It's just like nowadays it's more than what we had. It's you got a lot of film, a lot of weights, a lot of going over things. Where we really didn't have stuff like that.
One of the things that's obviously changed too is facility-wise. Looking back when you played, obviously, you played for Coach Jenkins, who the field's named after now. But how the field's set up now is the home bleachers are where the visitors' bleachers were now. And even like the track, you talked about how you were a track athlete. Coach Williams, who we named the track after this last season, you didn't even have a paved track. So how impressed are you with how the facilities have changed, and obviously the growth of both Williamsville and Sherman as well?
It's awesome. It's funny that you say that because track-wise, we raised all the money for the track. We thought we were going to get the all-weather track when I was a senior, and it just didn't happen. They got it. They ended up getting it the next year, and then when we were getting ready to graduate, they recrowned the field, and we were out there picking rocks and getting the field and stuff ready. But like you said, it's a great facility. I'm glad to see it the way it is now. It's going to bring a lot more people, a lot more kids to our program. It's a very nice facility. They've done a great job with it.
And we'll talk kind of more about kids and kind of how you've been giving back with being part of the JFL program in a little bit. But I want to go back specifically because not only do you hold the all-time rushing record currently, but you also hold the single game rushing record. You did that your senior year, week 2 against Nokomis. You ended up beating them 48-6. You had 312 yards on 13 carries that game. But the thing that I want to talk about is the 99-yard run that you had in that game. Do you remember that at all, or kind of what set that up for you to be able to get that 99-yard run, which still stands today as the longest rushing touchdown in Bullets history?
Yep, I remember it clear as day. We were sitting back in the end zone, and tell you the truth, I had one heck of a fullback, and I had one heck of a wide receiver. My wide receiver loved the block. We called it a little in and out, where he would go in towards the linebacker, and then once we swept it out, he would come back in and just plow that CB. And then once I got upfield, my fullback, he loved to level people. He wasn't a very big kid, but he loved to hit, and we loved to have him and back up into the end zone. And like I said, our wide receiver did a little in and back out, plowed that guy, and I was off to the races.
Now, when you're saying your fullback's leading you, what kind of reminds me when we would run power stuff when I was coaching, it would either be like an ISO play or a buster play where we would leave that end unblocked, and then that fullback would kick him out. Is that kind of what it was a buster play that you were able to break it on the outside?
Both. It was my wide receiver and my fullback, because I think a linebacker maybe came over too. I knew 2 people got hit and I got through, because I was kind of almost laughing to the end zone because the way that my wide receiver had just laid out this CB. It was a pretty cool hit, one of the better hits I've ever seen.
Now, obviously you guys were in 2A back then when it was only a 6-class system, and the enrollment was smaller than what it is now. We're right under 500, and I know, being in 2A, you're probably looking, between 200 and 300 in terms of enrollment. So one of the things you probably do is play defense as well, correct?
Yes. Yep, I played cornerback.
So that's the impressive thing. Now, one of the luxuries that we have this season is we're able to 2 platoon, and, the offensive guys are getting a break. How are you able to stay conditioned and fresh, both on the offense and defensive side of the ball, so that you could do both jobs well and make sure you had your responsibilities covered?
I give all that to Jimmy Byron. He did a lot for me. He kept me. If I cramped up, he was right there to, rub me down. If I had chest pains, anything like that, he was there to, tell me what I needed to do, breathing treatment, stuff like that. It helped out tremendous, because, I played both sides of the ball. I was a kick returner. I was a punt returner. I actually punted. So, it was, when I was done with the game, I was tired and I was sore.
And I'm sure that kind of is cool for you to see that, Mr. Byron is still around on the sidelines and still a part of Bullet football after all these many years.
Oh, yeah, I pray for him every day.
Now, one other thing that's been a big difference in terms of, when you and I were in high school is the amount of coverage now in the Springfield and the Sangamon County area. Obviously, a big part of that has been channel1450.com. I know they're doing a story on both you and Jace this week. You're going to be doing an interview later today. But how impressed have you been with their coverage and the amount of exposure that these kids get now? Because back when you and I were playing, if there was a minute worth of highlights on the local news, we thought we were big time.
I think it's great. It gives these kids that, maybe didn't have a great year but got the heart, to go out there and do it. You got some of, just like in the NFL, you got some of these guys that were no-namers, but they go out and they're, top players, You don't have to be the top player in college or high school. You dedicate yourself, you do what you got to do, and I believe everything will work out.
One of the last questions that I have for you here, you said that you currently coach JFL. How important has that been for you to be able to give back to this program that you obviously left a huge mark on and had a huge impact on your life when you were here and obviously moving forward as well?
It's tremendous. I like to give back to these kids, show them, what we had learned. Basically just get them ready for high school. Like I said, football nowadays, it's a full-time job. You got to, there's a lot of work, there's a lot of effort into it, and just kind of get these kids ready for, getting into high school. To me, winning a game, every coach wants to win the game, but if you come out and give us 110%, 100%, that's all we can ask.
Last question for you, Brian. Obviously, the Bullets travel to Carlinville this weekend for second-round playoff game. Very good likelihood that the record you set 18 years ago for the all-time career rushing leader could get broken. Obviously, Jace is 15 yards away from tying it, 16 yards from breaking it. Are you going to be in attendance this weekend?
I'm going to try. I got a couple things work-wise going on, but I'm definitely going to try to make it out there.
Well, Brian, once again, thank you so much for coming on today, taking time out of your busy schedule to talk with us and let the people of Bullet Nation kind of know your story and take a trip down memory lane. But before we let you go, is there anything else that you'd like to add or tell the listeners out there?
Pretty much be dedicated. Do it, do what you're supposed to do. Listen to, people like us. We're going to get you in the right direction. Just keep trying, keep pushing, and like I said, get to work and do what we got to do.
Well, Brian, once again, thank you so much. And when we return, we'll be joined by senior running back and currently sitting second time on the all-time rushing list for the Williamsville Bullets, Jace Franklin.
If you can't make it out to the game, you don't have to worry about missing a moment of the action by following all BB and Bullet athletic happenings on Twitter at WCUSD15Sports. And now back to the show.
Welcome back to Williamsville Sports Weekly, presented by Ed Legner, Country Insurance Financial Representative out of Sherman, Illinois. You can visit Ed for all your insurance and financial needs. Sitting with us right now, senior running back for the Bullets and currently sitting in second place for all-time career rushing yards for a career, Jace Franklin. Jace, how are we doing today?
Good. How you doing?
Not bad at all. The thing that kind of amazes me is I look at you right now, you're a senior, and I remember, 2 years ago as a sophomore, and it just seems like that season was such a short time ago. How fast have these last 3 years gone by for you?
I mean, just sitting back and looking at everything that's happened through the years, I feel like it's just flown by. I mean, state championship last year, first round, knocked out, or state championship 2 years ago, first round knocked out last year, and then this year we're going to the second round right now, and I feel like that's just an amazing feat.
And we'll talk about those past seasons and the game coming up this weekend against Carlinville in a little bit. But the thing that I want to start is you obviously didn't start your high school career here. You started at Southeast. You transferred in your sophomore season, and obviously anytime you switch a school or anytime you move, regardless of what age you are in life, that's a big transition. But it's even probably harder as a high school kid just because of knowing friends, and it's just it's sometimes an awkward time in your life being a teenager. So kind of talk to us about that transfer and transitioning from Southeast over here to Williamsville.
I mean, coming into Williamsville, it was just a huge change. I mean, growing up in 186, I knew a lot of people. I knew a lot of kids from different schools, my school. Going into Southeast, I just had a set friend group, basically. I mean, I had about 4 or 5 friends that I played football with, and we just rode around together, and we just knew each other really well. And then coming into here, I knew a couple of kids, but not really anything about the school. I mean, I tried to come out here a little bit earlier, around 5th grade, but things didn't work out around there. So coming in here high school, it just really it was a game changer for real. Definitely the football team was a huge thing for me. That's really why I wanted to come out here and be on a really good football team, and I just wanted to win. I mean, Southeast, they're a great team, don't get me wrong, but I mean their tendency to win isn't too high. So.
And obviously, looking at another transition that's going to be happening in a little less than a year when you go to college, how do you think how much more prepared do you think you are now that you already had to make a transition like that and establish new relationships a few years ago that you're going to have to do again in college now?
I mean, college is going to be a bigger high school. I see it as just the same thing as transferring here. I feel like Williamsville is the old Southeast, and college is the new Williamsville. I mean, I'm going to be in a whole new coaching staff, school, new friend group. I'm going to have to make new friends just like I did when I came here, and I feel like it's just going to be the same exact thing, just a little bit tougher.
Now, you came in your sophomore season, and the football team had come off a disappointing loss to St. Joe the year before in the quarters. You come in. How hard was it for you to learn, a brand new offense in a short amount of time and fit into that team and that core group of players that were already here?
I mean, looking at it from the outside, I probably think people would say it's pretty tough, but being on the team and the guys that were around me, I mean, that front line, that front 5, they were just tremendous in helping me. I mean, they moved people, just made it easy to go through. Those guys, again, that senior group, that was a great group of seniors. They helped me out through everything. They taught me the plays, taught me where to go. Basically, in practice, they were there for me. If I needed help and I had a question, I asked them before I asked the coaches, because I feel like they were in the game. They knew what was going on. One person in particular was Mitch Whitley. He brought me under his wing the first practice. I still remember to this day. We were walking out to practice, and he was like, "I'm going to put you on my wing. I'm going to help you, and we're going to go to state." And when he said that, I just had a dream. I didn't even know about state. I mean, being a freshman at Southeast, I had no idea. Didn't even watch the playoffs. Had no idea what those were. And so going to state that year with those guys was a great feat.
Now, talking about that season and you coming in particularly, and I remember you were really kind of just focused on your speed, and you really wanted to break it to the outside and, just use your speed as your advantage. Yeah. And as the season went on, though, you kind of changed that philosophy a little bit, and you started to kind of slow down a little bit and wait for your blocks. Kind of talk to us about that and how you had to change as a back and your mentality so that you could really excel and do what you do best.
Definitely when practice started, I kind of did what the coach told me to do. I hit the holes and stuff like that. But when the game goes and your adrenaline's going, your first instinct is, all right, there's no hole there, so just go outside where there's nobody there. And, I mean, that'll get you 6-7 yards, but that can only do so much sometimes because teams start to key on that, and they'll just send somebody outside, and then you're done in the backfield. So, later in the season, I think my patience was a huge thing for me. I mean, if you're a back and you have patience, you can go a long way because you can just see the hole develop and you can hit the hole, and, I mean, it's just there. I mean, that year I never really looked inside because I didn't feel like it would ever develop. And then I started seeing it develop, and it was just a hole there, and you hit it, and you're going.
Well, and really, like, as the playoffs went on, as I think when your vision really became awesome, and there's a few games that stick out for me. Obviously, the big one against New Berlin. Second round, we're down under 2 minutes to go, and I think we had to probably go 70 yards. Kind of take us back to that drive and what you're thinking and what's going on in the huddle at that point, knowing that if we don't score, the season's done, and really it probably would have been a disappointment.
Yeah, I mean, the whole game we had trouble running the ball. We had trouble passing the ball. I mean, if my memory serves me right, we were down 7-10, and we needed to score, and so they had just scored. There was about 2 minutes left, and Tate caught the kickoff and returned it for a big chunk of yards. So he put us in great field position, and then he grinded us down, and our wide receivers got us down to about 10-yard line, and there was 2 carries in those last couple of plays, and the first carry was run to the outside, of course, and I got about 7 yards, and it got us down to about the 4 or 5, and after that, we dialed a play, and our line just opened up a huge hole, basically, that I could walk through. And we scored, and everybody just congratulated me. I was crying on the sideline. Tate was crying on the sideline. Just tears of joy. We were just so excited to know that we were going on. And, I think that game was definitely a wake-up call for us because, we killed almost everybody that we saw, so we didn't really have a close game. We never knew what it felt like to be in a close game like that. And being in that game really helped us out. It really opened up our eyes to this is real football. This is what we're going to see in the playoffs. And so I really thank New Berlin for that game.
The other memory from that season, and I think, and I know you're going to have some other great moments, but the one that I always think about when I think of you is you breaking that huge one in the state title game to tie the game up and take us back to that and being at Memorial Stadium and breaking that against Wilmington and tying that up and getting us back in the game with under 6 minutes left.
Sitting down and looking back at it, every time I think about it or watch it on TV or on YouTube or wherever I see it, just gives me goosebumps because I picture it in my head. I can see exactly what I did. I remember everything that happened in that moment. I just remember Coach calling that screen pass and everybody was blitzing Blyer and clapping my hands, asking for the ball, and he gave it to me. And I don't ever feel like I've ever ran that fast in my life. I looked at the end zone. I never turned back. I looked back to see if there was anybody behind me, but that was about it. That play was just it was a wake-up call for me because I realized this is my home. This is where I need to be, and these are the guys I really need to be around. Coach Coons really helped me out in that process too.
Now, with that, do you think it was that playoff run that kind of put your name on the map for the recruiting process and what you'd be able to do at the next level? Were you before that run? Were you getting any college looks at all?
Going into the season, I got a couple small schools, 1 or 2 big ones, but after that run in the state game, it just blew up basically. There's a lot of colleges looking for me, and there was probably a lot of colleges watching that game, and so seeing a sophomore do that in a state game, it's a pretty big statement.
Now, going into your junior season, I think you really started to transition, into the back that you are today, and really increasing your power. And when you see your runs now, obviously you have that breakaway speed, but you have that ability to put kids on their rear end. And there's been quite a few times, over the last 2 years where you're taking 3, 4, 5 guys down. I know there was one in the Maroa game this year that sticks out, that Riverton game your sophomore season, but I think really between your sophomore and your junior that really developed. What was your workout regimen, and what was kind of your goals to improve yourself between your sophomore and your junior season? Because obviously your yards increased. You went from 859 your sophomore season to 1242 your junior year. So you obviously had to put a lot of hard work in, and your name even got bigger at that point in terms of the recruiting scene.
Definitely the first step was eating right. I was probably about 160 pounds my sophomore year. I was a little guy, and running around those linebackers and all that, speed can only get you so far. So I've kind of realized that you got to put some weight on. I saw that being out there, 106 pounds, it's not going to get you too far. You get hit by one big guy, you're down. I feel like if you work out and you get some ass, it's going to be a little bit harder to bring you down. I saw that I had some strength my sophomore year, but not as much as I needed. Going into my junior year, I think I weighed about 175 pounds, and I finished the season around 180. And that's just eating right, working out. I mean, we had weights Monday, Wednesday, Friday during the summer, and then the season got around. We had Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. I mean, we were in there every single day, trying to get bigger, trying to get stronger, just trying to get every little inch or one little pound over than what we were the day before. And I mean, Coach Coons and our weight program is just tremendous here, and I feel like that really excelled my game and put me to the next level.
Now, there's a lot of similarities between you and Brian Lyttaker, who that record that you're chasing right now, and you look at the yards that you each had your junior year and then increasing it into your senior year. Did you even know that you had a chance to break this? I know there was kind of a goal for you to get to 2,000. I know that they 1450 did a piece on you at the beginning of the season, and that was a goal. Was that just the goal you set, or were you hoping to etch your name in the record books as the all-time leading rusher here at Williamsville?
Going to the season, I knew if I got that 2,000, then that put me up at number one. I knew that for sure. At the end of the season last year, Coach Coons brought it to my attention. He was like, "Dude, you're pretty close to breaking this record," and I never in my million years would ever think that I could break a school record here. I mean, I was coming in as a sophomore just trying to play football. I mean, I didn't really have playoff state records. None of that was in mind. And then knowing that there was a pretty manageable amount of yards to come into this season and break the record. It was a huge feat.
Now, the one interesting thing that I look at when I look at these stats is, Brian, he got the record on 501 carries. Right now, you have 447. You're 15 yards away. Do you think you've been able to do it in less amount of carries because of the different offensive styles of play now, or do you think there's another reason why you currently have less carries than he does to get that number?
I feel like it's a little bit of everything. There's a little bit of everything in there. I mean, we don't run the same offense. They run that power eye, and we run the spread. So, I mean, cannot take that away from our receivers. I mean, I've been blessed to have great receivers around me to open up the run. We had a record-breaking receiver my sophomore year, and so, I mean, people keyed on him, which opened up the run. Last year, we had Ken Basket and Creswell and just a bunch of big guys that made defensive coordinators pull their guys out of the run lane so that we could pass a little, or so they could stop the pass a little bit. And I mean, this year Kenton has just turned into an amazing wide receiver, and then we have Ader and all those other guys, and Joe especially. I mean, those guys are out there just eating up all the DBs that they can, and that just opens up the passing game for me, or the run game for me. I mean, it's just an amazing thing. We get out there and we start running the ball, and then the teams start bringing themselves in, and it just makes it a whole lot easier for those receivers to get those yards. And so, I mean, yeah, I feel like the play style and the people that we have on our team definitely made a huge impact on the yards and the less carries.
Now, one of the games that really helped you to get on pace this season was the game against New Berlin. Mm-hmm. Very similar to Brian's big game, and currently he holds the all-time leading rushing record in a single game against Nokomis back on September 4th, 1998, where they beat him 48-6. He had 312 yards that game on 13 carries. He had a 99-yard touchdown run. Right now, your longest is 75. Hopefully, we're never pinned up that deep to the end zone for you to get a 99-yard one, but I'm sure you would love to have one. But going back to that New Berlin game, you had 273 yards, 6 total touchdowns. Is that game your fondest memory at this point, or is there another one? I mean, talking with him in the last segment, that was one of the ones that sticks out in his mind. I think he really spoke about that 99-yard touchdown run and kind of how it opened up for him, and that's a big memory for him. Is it that New Berlin game, or is there another one that kind of sticks out for you, whether it's this season or in the previous two?
I mean, looking back at myself and looking at the games that I've played, I feel like there's a ton of games that I could say are my best games. That New Berlin game was definitely by far my best producing game. I was just a power back. I was hard to bring down in that game, and I pride myself on that game. it was just a good game on my part. But there's been some games that I feel like meant more to the program than just me. I mean, we beat New Berlin pretty handily, and so that gave us the advantage to just pat the stats and basically get us more yards. And I mean, 6 touchdowns in a game, never knew that was gonna happen either. I think my highest before that was 4. So 273 yards, that was a big game too. I look at it and that's just a lot of yards. I mean, up and down the field 2 times and then back down to 73. So it's a big game for me.
Transitioning to recruiting a little bit, you've made some visits. You've been down to Southern. You've been up to Northern. You have some smaller schools that are interested in you right now. Kind of, where are you at in this process right now? And have you started to narrow your choices, or are you going to wait until the season's over? Hopefully that day after Thanksgiving.
I'm really looking to wait till the end of the season. I have 4 offers so far from Valparaiso, McKendree, Dort, and my most recent is Minnesota State, Mankato. All great programs, all great coaches that have been in contact with me. And, I mean, the places that I really want to be are close to home. I have a lot of family, and family is a huge thing for me, and I want them to be able to see me play. So in-state schools are a real big deal for me. I mean, I want to be at a good program, but I also want to be close to home so that they can come see me play.
Obviously a big game Saturday. In terms of the styles of play, very similar. And the running back down at Carlinville. His first name is escaping me. I know his last name's Dixon. Jacob Dixon. And you guys played together this summer. I don't think a lot of people know that. Talk to us about your guys' relationship and how you know him from what you guys did this summer.
This summer was when I really met Jacob Dixon. We became really good friends, honestly. We always used to tease each other about how he got more yards than me last year or how he scored more touchdowns than I did. And it was just kind of just a joking matter. And we always just joke around about what if we see each other in the playoffs or something like that. And, I mean, now it's really coming true. I never thought that we would play them. And then seeing the playoff bracket, it just sprung just a light bulb in my head. And I just saw it all come together. But Jacob and I, we're kind of the same back. I mean, we kind of do the same moves. He stays up a little bit better. But we are pretty much the same back. I mean, we play the same game. We want to get to the outside. We want to score touchdowns. We want to get all those yards that we can.
And you've had to kind of play 2 different roles this week in practice with kind of mirroring what he does to get our defensive ready.
Right. This week in practice for our scout team, I mean, I'm Jacob Dixon, so I have to do exactly what he does. So being him being the same back that basically I am, it's really not too hard. I mean, I just look at the plays and I look at the holes and I say, where would I go? And wherever I would go is basically where he would go. So I'm just working to get our defense ready for this upcoming week.
Now, one of the things that's really helped us this year is being able to 2 platoon. We're not a lot of guys playing both ways. And you played a little bit last year on the defensive side of the ball. Do you know, is he playing on defense at all, or is he straight offense?
One of our greatest assets is not having 2-way players. I mean, I think we have 1 or 2. We don't have that many. But looking at Carlinville, they have a couple in. Jacob Dixon is one of them. He plays a rover spot for them, and he's basically just locked on a receiver if they have one out, or he's just trying to stop the run. He's basically Arcade Beckett. So yeah, he plays a little bit of defense. So I mean, if we can stay on offense and tire him down a little bit, I think that definitely help our defense out when he gets on offense.
How much has that helped you this season, being able to get to get a breath when the defense is out there, and then also being able, to talk with the coaching staff, especially with the new huddle sideline stuff, for you to be able to see stuff and see things open up a little bit more that you obviously wouldn't have had last year?
Yeah, I mean, getting on the field and then making a play and then coming off the field and seeing it on the iPad. I mean, we can really break down every single play. We can see exactly what everybody did on that last play. So, I mean, we get on the field and we come off and we just get on the iPads. Coaches get on the iPads and we see exactly what happened. We see if we have a bad play in the drive, we look at that play and we see exactly what happened. But going to the playing both ways, I come off the field off of offense after getting a huge play, or somebody gets a huge play and we're up and down the field. We're on the field for about 5 minutes. coming off the field, I could definitely feel myself catching my breath, getting a break, taking a drink of water, sitting down, looking at everybody, and talking to the coaches. I mean, they tell me what I can do better when I get on the sideline. So having that break really helped. I mean, this whole summer I worked a defensive position, but for some reason we didn't need me. I mean, we have athletes on our defense, and playing defense for me was a fun thing. But knowing that somebody else could play it better and could get me a break, that was the main reason that I really wanted somebody else to step in that spot.
Obviously, we want to focus on this week's game, and obviously, we want to make another run here. But what's it going to take for us this week to get the win and move on to the quarters?
Next week or this week coming up, we have to do everything right. We can't make those little mistakes that we've been making lately. We can't have offside penalties or false starts or blocks in the back or holes or stuff like that. Those are just big plays. Those are big things that bring us back. I mean, we could have a 80-yard touchdown and then have a hold all the way back where the line started, and that cuts the run down a tremendous amount. So if we do the little things right, if we do the simple things right, I feel like we could definitely make a difference. We can have a big game. If we just do the little things right, the game will be in our hands.
Going back to the record that you have a chance to get this weekend, obviously I know that's a pretty special thing to be in the record books. And talking with Brian in the last segment, he said he's really proud that someone broke his record. Looking ahead, 15, 20 years down the road, how special would it be for you to be sitting, kind of in his spot and reflecting and saying, Jimmy Smith or something's going to break your record?
I mean, it's kind of a bittersweet moment for him, I'm guessing, because, that record's held for a pretty long time. A lot of great backs have been through the program and haven't even came close to touching it. So to be that guy that breaks that record, that means a whole lot for me. It was a humbling experience to meet him yesterday. And to get that call will probably be the same feeling that he has right about now. I mean, it'll be bittersweet. So I'll love to see the guy that breaks it, because that'll be an awesome feeling to know that somebody of that caliber I'm sitting next to. So that'll be pretty cool.
And obviously, you still have hopefully a few more opportunities in front of us here to keep adding to that,
right,
and getting to that goal of 2,000, which would be absolutely awesome.
Right. If I can just get that 2,000, that'll be a great thing for me. Just making that record as high as I can, setting the bar a little bit higher for those kids that are behind me. It's a huge thing for me. I want to make a challenge. I want to running back to look at the record book and be like, I want to break this record, and I want him to do it, because if he does that, he'll be a great asset for the program.
Jace, this has been an absolute pleasure to sit down and talk with you. We wish you obviously the best of luck on Saturday. We know there's going to be a big crowd down in Carlinville, a short hour drive south of us here. But before we let you go, is there anything else that you'd like to add or tell the listeners out there?
I just want to tell any of those younger guys out there that are working to be the best that they can be. If you eat right, take care of your body, work out, make yourself as big as you can and as fast as you can do anything that you want. But lastly, I just want to thank my parents, of course, thank the team. They're great out there. I mean, they do everything that they can to open up the holes that I do, and just blocking down the field. And most important, I thank the coaches. They're the ones that call the plays that give me the ball to get the yards that I get. So just want to thank them.
And obviously, as an old offensive line coach, is there anyone else that you like to thank specifically? We always told the running backs to do this in any interview that they have. Oh yeah, you got to thank the line. You got to thank Coach Kincaid. I mean, he came in this season. He was a great guy. I mean, he turned our line into the big beasts they are out there. I mean, they're just putting people on the ground, and they're just getting after it, making huge holes for me, and I can't thank him enough for turning our line into those guys. Jace, like I said, it's been an absolute pleasure. We're excited about Saturday, and hopefully we have you on here in 10 or 15 years if someone gets to where you're at right now. So thank you again. No problem. Can't wait to be back. When we return, we'll take a look ahead at the upcoming week for both the BBs and the Bullets.
Next time you're in the market for insurance or financial planning, stop by and see Country Financial Representative Ed Legner at 318 Crossing Drive in Sherman, or give him a call at 217-496-2341. And now, back to the show.
Welcome back to Williamsville Sports Weekly, presented by Ed Legner, Country Insurance Financial Representative out of Sherman, Illinois. You can visit Ed for all your insurance and financial needs. Obviously, it's great to hear, from the past with that interview with Brian, and it was cool to listen to his stories, especially about that 99-yard touchdown that he had against Nokomis back on September 4th, 1998. And currently, obviously, he still holds that record as the longest touchdown run in Bullets history. But the interview that I really want to talk about is that interview that we just had with Jace. And we've had a lot of interviews on here, obviously being episode 85, but I would say that was probably one of the best student interviews we've ever had, and it was amazing to hear how humble he was and how he wanted to ensure he gave credit to everyone else that has been a part of the record that he'll probably be able to achieve this Saturday in Carlinville.
He's a very mature, well-spoken young man. I've never had him in class, but I did get to know him. A lot of times in the winter, I'll go down and just chat with Coach Beard, about upcoming games and stuff, just kind of see what's going on. And he happened to be in the class where I'd go down and talk to Coach sometimes, and I got to know him. And I was also fortunate enough to be a part of the captain's nomination interview process, where the last year juniors came in and interviewed to be a captain for the football team. And he was just so well-spoken and just well-mannered, and I would want to play with him. That's what I told Coach. We're trying to decide what we thought, and I was like, well, I know I'd want to play with him. So that's I think that's the biggest honor you can give somebody. So I want to be on his team. And that's, you don't break these records with just talent. The other kids have to really be pulling for you too. And if you're not humble as a running back, you don't get that extra effort from your linemen and from your wide receivers. And you can see every game those kids are really pulling for him and trying to block for him, give that extra effort. And not just for set some record, but they know he'll do something with it and help the team out.
Yeah. Well, obviously a big game this weekend as they travel down to Carlinville, 3 p.m. kickoff on Saturday against the Cavaliers. Very similar in terms of makeup between the two teams. They have a running back similar to Jace. His last name's Dixon. I can't remember his first name right now. But the cool thing, and Jace talked about it, was how they played on the same 7-on-7 team this summer.
Oh, cool.
And so there's that connection there. But with the similarities, it's going to be an interesting ball game.
Yeah, and I know we were cleaning up from the Hillsborough game. We talked to their video person, who was an older gentleman who just kind of seemed like he'd seen a lot of football over the years. And we asked him how we matched up with Carlinville, since Hillsborough had played Carlinville earlier in the year. And he said, well, I tell you what, your teams are almost a mirror image of one another. And he goes, I think it'll be a great game. He said it'll be a fun game to watch. He thinks there'll be a lot of points scored. And he said you just match up really well. He felt like, from seeing both teams. So, yeah, and Carlinville's got just a legendary program in that area. They've been in the playoffs millions of times, and and we were in the same position up here. So it'll be neat to see the two conferences kind of clash too. 2 8-1 teams from South Central and Sangamo. So it'll be an interesting game, and I think it'll be a very entertaining game. I think there'll be a lot of points scored, but again, I haven't seen both teams on the field together, but I think both teams are averaging in the 40s. So probably look for a lot of scoring. Whichever team, it always goes. Those games tend to come down to whichever team makes the least mistakes usually wins. So hopefully it'll be good weather, and both teams can there won't be any outside interference with weather or the environment, so both teams can just play.
Mid-60s is the scheduled forecast, and hopefully everyone before then can go up to Detweiler Park in Peoria as the girls' cross-country team first-time program history will be running up there at 9 o'clock.
Absolutely.
I'll have updates on Twitter, WCSD 15 Sports. On Twitter, if you want to follow us on there. Great chance for them to bring a trophy home. So, and obviously a lot going on with junior high basketball as the girls are getting towards the tail end of their season, and the boys just started this last week. So a lot of exciting things going on, and it's just amazing that we're in November already.
It is, and it seems like once we hit November, things just start really flying. It'll be soon we'll be talking basketball games, and then Christmas tournament, and county and state tournament. Yeah, and that's why I still like to be involved, and you let me be involved with this. Is it does make things go a bit quicker because you get entertained as you go along the way, and it's great to be here because it seems like we're always got our nose stuck in the postseason a little bit, and that's the fun part of it.
At least on the positive side now, we don't have to hear anything more about baseball until spring training. So
yep, hot stove league.
There you go. Hey, until next week, remember it's always better to be a Bullet.